Hey, everybody, welcome to this interview episode of Thinking Outside the Long Box. As always, I'm Gabe, and today we have with us Osric Chau. You probably remember him as a prophet in Supernatural, which is why we contacted him after our 4-episode run of Supernatural Talk, but he was also in Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, which has become one of Doyle's favorites and something that we're all getting pretty excited to watch in an upcoming episode as well, too. So, Osric, how are you today, man?
I'm doing well. I'm a little sleepy. I woke up.
Yeah,
I just woke up. I should have set my alarm a little earlier, but
that's okay. If it was up to me, I would probably wake up at noon every day, but I have dogs that want to be fed at 5, so there's that.
Fair enough.
Well, Osric, of course, we're having you on the show today because we spent basically 2 hours talking about the full run of Supernatural, and you play a very important role in Supernatural as one of the prophets. As we start, let's start with just kind of how did you end up on the show? Like, what was that experience like?
It was a normal audition, just like anything else. The only big difference for me was that I was on my way to LA to do an even bigger audition for another show, for series regular. And so I actually didn't want to do the audition for Kevin Tran. There's a lot of things involved, but I basically had to change my flight. Cost me $600. All of a sudden, it was a $600 audition, and the idea of paying for an audition was just weird back then, and so I just kind of chalked it up. I'm like, okay, this is an investment in myself, even though I don't really want it because it's, I have this other one that's way bigger. And Kevin Tran, honestly, that first episode, he was such a stereotypical character, and I'm like, I don't want to play this stereotypical Asian character. And due to my agent's recommendation, I did it anyways. Got offered the role of Kevin Tran, got offered the role for the other one. I declined Supernatural to do the other one because I could only do one. Turns out it was the same business affairs person. They're like, we're not going to lose an actor to our own show. So they ended up trying to make it work. The other show actually didn't end up getting picked up. So I completely lucked out and didn't really know anything about Supernatural. Did my first couple of days on set. Everyone was like warning me, is like, oh, you're going to get it. You're going to hear about all these things. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here to do my job. And sure enough, my life gets flipped over on its head within a couple of months.
It's amazing, like kind of looking at the fandom that developed over 15 years of the show. We were interviewing Jim yesterday, I was talking about how my daughter basically grew up watching the television show. She was 3 when it started coming out. When you've basically been accosted, for lack of a better term, by the fan base, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Maybe sometimes it is, but like the fans are very devoted to the show. I'm sure that you're aware that there's fan fiction of you shipping with other people. Like, has there been any awkward moment where somebody's like, oh my gosh, wish you were with this character on the show, and it just made you feel a little awkward?
No, thankfully for me, my roommates at the time were pretty hardcore Supernatural fans. I didn't realize that until after the show premiered for me, which was pretty hilarious, to start noticing like posters of Jared and Jensen and Misha on the walls and never completely ignoring them prior. But no, I've never had that. Like, I was aware of fan fiction because they told me about it, and I glanced it up briefly at the beginning just because I was curious, and then I had to stop very quickly. And it's not, it's fiction. It's for people to play around with in their imaginations. And I don't need to be involved in that. I'm totally happy to let people I've certainly done my fair share of it. So I encourage people to do it. In fact, I think it's a great exercise for creativity and just having an outlet.
So, obviously this is a huge show. it's been on for more than a decade. As it's wrapping up, you're coming to these final episodes that kind of bring a lot of the previous characters back into the season so that they can kind of have a final farewell. And in the Raising Hell episode, you kind of had a little bit of that opportunity, and everybody kind of had those sorts of opportunities. As you're looking back on the end of the show, what are some of the kind of feelings that you have towards what it's done for you, or the experience overall?
I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride since that first day, but for sure it's by far and large a positive to my life. Like, it has changed my life in so many ways. And I was not ready for any of it. But like everything else, you kind of figure it out. You fall on your face sometimes, but my career has taken off in ways that I had only ever hoped before, but I never knew how or if it was even possible. And I'm in a place right now that I'm starting to put the pieces together for the next thing, or maybe the next phase of my career. And I never thought I would be in this position either. So it's been only fond memories, like with the cast and crew. Every time I got back to that set, it was such a warm, fuzzy feeling. And I never thought I would have that feeling for a job. Certainly not in this industry, where it felt like, oh, this is a place you go back to. This is that feeling of home. And I certainly got that on this set. Just like having seen these people for like a period of six years, but like spread out over, I was on season 7, 8 years in total, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is such a weird thing to think about. 8 years.
It's like a huge amount of time.
Yeah. So it's definitely the longest standing job that I've ever had, like throughout the largest period of time. And yeah, it's just weird to see people grow up and change, and you grow together, you grow apart. It's this big, crazy family that, everyone's doing their own thing. So it's just nice to check in every now and again. And this is a group that does check in every now and again. It's like, where's everyone at? And if someone's not doing well, we'll do our best to prop them up. And, it's such a loving, supporting group that I'm so fortunate to be a part of.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Like, everybody that we've talked to about the show always mentions the word family, which I think is really cool, and a little, Fast and the Furious, but still really cool,
Yeah.
So, you had mentioned that originally you weren't interested in taking the role because you were afraid of, kind of portraying like a racial stereotype for your character. What are some of the things that you feel you can do with a role like this, and push into better representation and less stereotyping for just anybody?
Well, again, over the course of 8 years, like I've come from a very, very green actor to a slightly less green actor. I still have plenty to learn, but I feel like, especially at the beginning, it was such an odd thing to be in a position where I had a choice, right? I was starving for work. I just needed to, I needed to get on set and get some more experience. And so, like, it wasn't, if I didn't have the other one, it wouldn't have even been a question, right? But like, upon reflection, if I'm reading the thing and like really analyzing this character, like, I wouldn't have gone that way with him. And originally it was only a 3-episode arc, right? So it was cool, but it's, he lived and died a stereotype. The fact that they didn't kill him, they changed their mind. This is for me, it's a credit to the writer. For them, maybe it's a credit to me. I don't know. Maybe the fan base who took to the Kevin. I don't know how quickly that happens. But the fact that they let him live for as long as he did, and then kept him around even further, like, we got to see the stereotypes. And then we got to know him enough to see everything else as well. And I think that's something really cool for any minority character or stereotype, is like, we are stereotypes. It comes from a place of truth, but that's not all we are. So don't kill us before we get a chance to see all the other layers that we know are present.
That's awesome. Like it's interesting to think about that, because often with a movie you only get like this tiny glimpse of like a character because you can't expand it, but with a television show you can create that bigger, wider arc, and it's pretty cool. So one of the most entertaining things about any story arc that you're a part of is the actress that plays your mother on the show. Is she as funny in real life as she is on the show? Because she has some of the absolute best lines ever.
Yeah, Lauren, I mean, I think the first thing that's going to really like draw you in from Lauren is her laugh. Like, she's got the best laugh ever. She's hilarious, and she's like a legend in my community. She's been around for so long. She's done so many iconic characters and roles. I grew up watching her, all the cartoons that she's done voices for, right? So like, her voice is so familiar to me that it's kind of weird at first. But yeah, she's hilarious. She's great. She's super quirky and neurotic in her own way. But she definitely holds her own.
So, speaking of animation, you have worked on things like Tokyo Ghoul and Naruto and stuff like that. What's it like working on anime, that also has that same kind of like rabid fan base sometimes?
Well, so that's with a YouTube group called Reanime. And we have very ambitious plans for what we're going to do. But the idea is like, we weren't happy with the anime adaptations that were put out, and we just want to do our own thing. So in a sense, that is our fan fiction.
Right.
That these are our fan films that we want to put our own iterations on. And I love Naruto. I'm rewatching Naruto right now. Like, it's Naruto really was the person who raised me. It's 15 years of my life. It lasted as long as Supernatural. That's what I grew up watching, Naruto. And it's these very simple themes of, hard work begets the genius. You have the smart choice versus the empathetic one, seemingly stupid empathetic one. And I always try to work harder than the people who are proteges or geniuses. I always try to be the empathetic person, even if it might seem stupid, because I watched Naruto growing up. And those are the lessons that I learned. And I never want to be that person that can't see the good in someone, even if they're about to like literally eat your face. I just don't want to be that person who can't do that. And so it has certainly changed my life in so many ways, and honestly, now that I'm rewatching it, in more profound ways than I thought. And in doing these live action adaptations, it's for me, it's just about capturing that soul, that essence of an anime, while creating more content and just celebrating it with fans.
So this is just going to be a bit of an opinion. I'm a huge Rurouni Kenshin fan. Like, that's kind of my Naruto. Is when I was younger, that was one of my big time jams. And they've since gone and made a bunch of live action Kenshin movies, which are actually really pretty good. And there's kind of this trend towards that. For the show right now, we're watching Alice in Borderland, which is based on a manga. How do you feel about manga and anime being, kind of morphed into live action? Like, what are kind of some of your opinions on that?
There's a part of me that thinks, no, don't touch it. Just let it be pure. And then there's the other part of me that is just starving for more content and hoping that this will kind of allow more mainstream audiences to kind of be introduced to it. That being said, like, it's such a hard thing to do to not only appease your current fan base, but to also attract a new one. It's such a nice balance, like fine balance, that you have to figure out. I don't think it's impossible. I just think, when you bring it to the scale that a lot of them have to be in order for them to actually pull it off, because of, anime is insane. The production value that you need is so expensive. And so to get it to that scale, you actually have to take fairly huge amounts of risks if you're going like the full fandom route. But if you're going like the safety and you're going all these reputable people who may not have any idea of anime or what it means, and they just like, okay, I'll read like the bare amount of manga or watch the key episodes and they'll, catch me out. Like there's got to be a balance somewhere where it doesn't have to be all one way, where it's like, okay, these are super fans, but they have no idea how to execute. They don't know the system. They don't know how to play with the studios or the networks or anything. Or it's the other way, where it's like, these are professional filmmakers. They don't know what they're doing, but they forget, or the heart and soul of this anime just completely goes over their head, and they keep the wrong things. And they knock out things that are like so important that might seem like so dumb to an audience member. And so I think it's finding that balance that's so hard to do. So if they can do it right, then I'm all for it. If they don't, I hope it introduces new fans to the, to the anime, to the manga, but the current fans will probably just not watch it. So, I never want to dissuade anyone from trying. Obviously, there's a certain point when it gets to like, oh, you're definitely pandering too hard and it's not working, and please stop. So I think it really depends on intentions and just how the whole thing comes together. And being anime fans, we watch, because it doesn't happen that often. Like we watch every step of the way.
You're right.
So to some degree, like I just want the fandom to grow, much like the Comic-Con world has kind of grown into the mainstream now. Like I would like that for anime. I think it's such a massive thing that we're all part of, that it's still relegated to our basements, in the figurative sense. It feels like we can't outwardly fully express it except at an anime convention or online. So I would love for the point where it just gets a little bigger, so people feel more comfortable just going out there and celebrating their fandom.
It's awesome. For me, literally, it is in my basement. So, so Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency may be one of the most obscure IPs in science fiction literature possible, because like Douglas Adams wrote, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, which was massive. And then Dirk Gently's is just this like over here, bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm one of the only people that I know that's read the book. Like I've never I only have one other friend that I know that we've even talked about it. What's it like trying to explain to people what the show is about and like where it came from?
I remember this was a whole process that we all had to learn, because we were like, it's about a detective, but he's not really good at anything, but he just like he gets feelings. He gets like these notions that he just follows, and that leads him to other accidents and happenstances that lead him to eventually solving whatever case that he's on. And then there's a bunch of characters. It's so hard to explain. It's just so quirky and crazy. And even I remember when I got the job, me and the Rowdy Three, they set up a meeting for everyone to get together and meet, and none of us knew how to say our lines. We're like, wow, we have dialogue, but they're just like random words to us. We just did not understand it. And the writer just like sat us down with the director, who also had no clue. And they just like explained to us the entire concept of the show, all of our characters, like a 5-season arc over the course of hours. And it was just like the most amazing and fascinating thing ever. Yeah, Max did such a great job with adapting this show. And it was one of those shows that we just got so excited to read the script. Like I've never been on a set where people were that excited to read the next script. And this includes like the stunt coordinator. He's like, I never read scripts, but for this show, I just have to. Like there's so many stories about people reading the script. who's it? They're talking about Rainn Wilson. They're trying to get Rainn Wilson in, and they're like, oh man, we're close. Like he's asking for more scripts. And by the time he got to the 6th episode, they're like, okay, like we need to know, are you going to do this show or not? He's like, no, I just want to know how it ended. He was just asking for the scripts to make his decision. He's like, there's no way I can do the show because of schedule, but I wanted to read it.
So the book is crazy. The show is also crazy. There's a part of me that has been curious, like ever since watching it, did the director like want you to work absent of knowledge of the book, or did he encourage you guys to read the book? Because I feel like reading the book would almost, could potentially make things more confusing now that I really think about it a lot.
Yeah, we knew there was a book, but we also knew that it was only loosely based off of the book.
Right.
So when talking to Max, he was saying like, we're not doing a straight up adaptation. We're doing an adaptation in the style of Douglas Adams. He's like, there's no way we can do an adaptation of a Douglas Adams things because he has so many details in there. And if you try to put all the things, you're going to leave out a lot, and it's going to feel like half of what it could or should be, and it's not going to be a good TV show. He's like, so the best we can do, in my opinion, is to do it in the style of Douglas Adams with the pieces and all the things that you create for your own show. And so with that said, we didn't read the books. That being said, like the Rowdy 3, season 1, our job was to yell and break things, and that was it. Yeah. So like there wasn't much prep. It's my favorite job to date because I didn't have to prepare anything. I just show up like, all right, what am I yelling today? And then, they'd point us in our direction. We'd like figure out what we were going to smash that day. And then we just do it over and over again. It was amazing.
I feel like creating something in the spirit of Douglas Adams with zero prep work is exactly what Douglas Adams would want you to do.
Yeah, like honestly, best job ever.
That's so awesome. Fun. Well, as we're getting kind of towards the end of the interview, I know with the pandemic and everything, some people have stuff lined up, some people don't, some people have secret things that aren't happening yet, all that sort of stuff. But I'd love to give you an opportunity to let us know what we can look forward to from you.
Yeah, I've definitely kept myself busy doing a lot of writing and development. Awesome. I'm starting a restaurant in Vancouver.
Oh, congratulations. I was a cook for like 16 years. So
oh, wow.
Good luck, brother.
Yeah. Opening in a pandemic is not ideal, but yep. I think it's going to work out timing wise. By the time we open, hopefully the vaccine will have rolled out and, things will have settled down. Canada's not as bad as the States numbers wise. So, it's also okay, but we have like maybe 3-4 months until we're open.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed it works out. I have a couple of shows in development. I'm still hopeful for my role of Ryan Choi to come back at some point. I'm a big fan of that series, and that was like another dream role that I got to play for a short while. So I hope they bring him back in the DC universe, TV universe. That would be awesome. And I've been producing and developing a lot of features and a couple of TV shows as well. So we'll see how far I can take those. They've been exciting. I can't really give you much more details into that, but there are various sizes. I did a horror indie movie 2 months ago in Vegas. So my first pandemic shoot. But the ones that I'm putting together are all quite large, and I can't share just yet. But we'll see. Maybe fine. It doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen at some point, I can. But if it does, then I can't.
Nice. Well, so that we can find out if that thing does happen, how can our fans find you on social media?
You can follow me at Osric Chau on all things. Luckily, I'm the only one, and on Facebook it's Kevin Tran AP. The character on Supernatural has become such a large part of me. I dedicated my Facebook page to it.
That's awesome. Well, Osric, thank you so much for being on our show, man. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for being a part of a show that was integral to like one of my child growing up, and also just me being a giant fan of it. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Gabe. Thank you for coming so prepared with these awesome questions. And, yeah, I wish you and your family the best in this time as well.
Thank you so much, man.